Welcome to another episode of Riding the Bus Podcast. Make sure to follow along on Instagram. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You know all that stuff. We've been saying every episode. We appreciate you listening. Keep supporting. Leave a comment, rate, review, all that good stuff. We have a very special guest sitting in for David today, which we're bringing Conor Bierfeldt back into the fold. And that can only mean one thing. If Conor Bierfeldt is on the show, it means we're talking football.
You were talking football, baby. Two baseball players talking football.
Yes, as it should be. Because the football people don't know football, you know?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Baseball players don't know baseball.
Right. But baseball players know football.
But like the back of my hand. Yep.
Exactly. So let's start off right away. We're talking football. Obviously, if you haven't listened to the past episodes, Conor Bierfeldt is a big Patriots fan. And I think that whether he's a Patriots fan or not, I think a good place to start, which I thought was one of the more intriguing storylines of the NFL preseason, was the Patriots training camp and kind of what was gonna happen with the Cam Newton, Mac Jones, and other moves. The Patriots added a lot of pieces, and just kind of in general what their training camp would look like. So I thought we could start there. Obviously, the big one is the Patriots release Cam Newton.
Ben Perry was right.
Which, if you follow along, I called that. But I thought was interesting is that even though I called it based on the way things were going, I was still kind of surprised by it. Like I was kind of, I think if I had gone further into my take or my prediction, I would have said when I thought it was going to happen would have been sooner than it actually happened. Like I kind of thought it would almost happen like right when training camp started, or like maybe even like before training camp. They were just like, we're going Mac Jones. So as it was going, he and Cam had started every preseason game and whatnot. I'd almost forgotten about my prediction. It was like, they're going to roll with Cam Newton and then they'll ease, Mac Jones in.
Yeah.
Or not that Cam will start the entire season. But so then when I saw that they released him, I was like, wow, I am a little surprised by that. I obviously texted you. And so, yes, let's start there.
And found the receipts.
I did find the receipts.
Made sure the people knew.
Took a long time. I got a lot of data on my hard drive of just nonsense. But yeah, let's start there. Let's start Patriots camp. Let's go to our Patriots expert, Conor Bierfeldt.
Patriots insider. And over to you, Conor.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have a backup quarterback right now. That's Jacoby Myers, their best wide receiver. So,
okay. Because they also released Brian Hoyer, right?
Yep. They released Brian Hoyer. Jarrett Stidham had back surgery, which is what you want out of your quarterback. Right. I think in totality for the Mac Jones, Cam Newton, I'm always a proponent, and this might be old school, I'm always a proponent of give your rookies a little bit of leeway, right? Like let them get up to speed. And I've never been into an NFL training camp, so maybe Bill was confident that what he went through got him up to speed, and boy did he look the part, in however many 2.5 quarters or 3.5 quarters, whatever he ended up playing in preseason. Like obviously you're not a huge PFF guy, but like he was the highest graded quarterback I think in the entire preseason, so that's not for nothing. I think as a fan, it gives me a lot of confidence this season, and whether it's right or wrong, we are going to die on the hill that Bill Belichick knows what's best for the team, right? And where you side on the Bill Belichick versus Tom Brady versus they got to where they were because of each other, not totally separate. So, but I think if he's releasing Cam right now, he obviously is giving the reins to Mac Jones. He's not expecting to go 2-3 through the first 5 weeks, right? Or 2-2. He's not expecting to start off the season slow. He's expecting Cam Mac backwards is Cam forward.
Right. Yeah.
Correct. He's not. He is expecting to win games out of the chute, right? I think if he thought this season was anything more than a potential AFC or anything less than a potential AFC championship game team, I think Cam starts, and I think Mac Jones waits on the bench, and he, studies and takes his time and makes sure that he's 100% ready. So that gives me a lot of confidence going forward. With that being said, a really tough spot for Mac Jones to be in, because now with this preseason, with you being the guy, he is one of 3, I assume, rookie quarterbacks that are going to be, obviously a huge rookie quarterback class, but like 3 of them are going to be starting. Zach Wilson's in New York. I don't think anyone's expecting a whole lot of him, right? I did hear Tony Romo give a ton of praise and saying how he thinks Zach Wilson's going to be like in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes for the rest of their careers. But I don't think you just comes with the territory of being on the Jets is that he can go 3-13 next year. It's not going to really matter as long as he looks competitive. And then, other than that, you're dealing with Trevor Lawrence, which is the best quarterback prospect to come out since, unless you're Bennett Perry behind Justin Fields, but the best quarterback prospect to come out since probably Andrew Luck, right? So if Mac Jones doesn't win Rookie of the Year or get votes, I think people are going to think of it as a negative season or a disappointment of the season. Right. And that's a lot to put on a guy, a lot to put on a guy whose weapons are not what other teams' weapons are, right? Like, I guess you can compare him to the Jaguars. DJ Shark and Laviska Shenault aren't world beaters in themselves, but Jacoby Myers is a 5th round, 6th round, maybe undrafted wide receiver. You picked up Nelson Aguilar and the Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne. I love Kendrick Bourne. I couldn't think of the name, so I went to the tight ends, but I was definitely going to come back to Kendrick Bourne.
The chain mover, Kendrick Bourne.
So, all in all, I think that's a pretty full scope of where I'm at with Mac. I'm super excited. I'm more excited now. And I think football fans, just sports fans in general, we get this way. 5 days before the season starts, you're thinking it's going to be a rebuild, and you're like, well, no, I think they can do it. I think they can do it. You get that. I get that with Michigan football every year, and I absolutely should stop. But
I would say that's the beauty of sports, is that's why there's so much excitement on every league at the start of the league year, is that everyone has hope. Mm-hmm. Everyone's like, you never know. There's always these underdogs. So, like, what if this is just you have your top teams, that you're going to kind of be good, but even the Jaguars, like, who knows, man?
Yeah.
Maybe so just every team has hope, and I think that's what's exciting about the league. So I don't want you to lose that. Is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, for Michigan football, I should probably lose it. Though.
Right.
I forget what I was going to say there, but
I'm sorry I did cut you off, and I apologize for that. But I kind of wanted to ask you a question, even though based on what you said, I feel like I already know your answer. But I was going to ask you, do you think the decision to go with Mac was more about Bill and the Patriots staff, assuming that he listens to other people, not just himself, or it was that they were impressed with Mac and felt that Mac was the guy, or that they were displeased with Cam and was more like, we don't like Cam, so we might as well rip the Band-Aid off and just start our young guy and see what happens?
Yeah, I think it's more of the former than the latter. I think from what I heard, and obviously reading trading camp reports is not the most thorough research. There's just beat reporters throwing out kind of what they hear and their rumors, but nothing but good things about Cam. Bill respects the hell out of him. He brought him in last year. He brought him back, even after how bad he was last year, because he was like historically bad. They couldn't throw the football outside of that one game against the Seahawks in, I think, week 2, where they put up like 30, 40 points. Like, it was hard to watch. So the fact that he brought him back, I think it was nothing against Cam, and I think Cam did what probably a lot of people expected him to do in training camp in the preseason, which was, not throw the ball great, can move the ball with his legs, can kind of run control an offense, so to speak. But the again, beat reporters talk of the training camp was like Mac Jones was teaching Cam Newton the playbook. Right. Mac came in within a month or whatever it was, whenever they get the playbook, and now he's teaching someone or is going through it with somebody who has been there for an entire year, who has been in the NFL for 5, 7, 10 years, whatever it is. So, I think it's a good question. I think part of the release and not just backup was that Cam is now free to go to another team. If his career is not over, then he can go.
Well, that was gonna be my question: is why do you think that they didn't just keep Cam to be the backup? Because anywhere Cam goes, he's gonna have to be the backup.
Now, you're not gonna slide in somewhere and be a starter.
So I'm saying, like, why not? Do you think, obviously neither of us know, we're not actual insiders, but do you think it was Cam saying he didn't want to stay? He asked for his release? Or because I was like, right off the bat, I was like, I don't understand why they didn't just keep him as their backup. I mean, obviously not that Mac Jones has to look over his shoulder, but just maybe if Mac gets hurt, you have a guy, if you did like him, that he can come in. Because I think most people, including myself, or I'll just say for myself, think of the Patriots as they've retooled in this offseason. I think a lot of people are starting to think that they're at least going to be a good team this year. I think I think of them as a playoff team, And their formula for success is going to be through defense, through maybe the run game, or just through McDaniels kind of coming up with a good plan and the quarterback being efficient and executing the plan, but not really putting the game on the quarterback's shoulder. So whoever that was, if you could just get competent play there, that you could maybe be good. That's why I would think you'd want to have, if you had the luxury of already having Cam on your roster, why not just keep him and let him be the backup in case something were to happen to Mac?
No, I agree, and I that's why it was shocking. I know it was probably very music to your ears to see him get cut, but it was surprising that Cam is.
That is not true.
We never root against the guy.
No.
So I think it's surprising, and I don't know how the NFL works, nor do I know Cam's contract situation. I know it was pretty incentive laden, so it didn't seem like it was going to really cost the Patriots all that much to have him back up and not start games, not complete passes, not throw for however many yards. But maybe Bill told him, and this is again now I'm just creating a hypothetical in my head, but Bill said, "Hey, go ahead and see what else is out there. If there's a situation you like that's better than what you're going to have here, because you know what you're going to have here. You're never going to beat him out for the job. The job is his for the next 3 years, whatever kind of leeway the rookie's going to get. So your role here. Go ahead. If you want to go to, can't think of a team, but Indianapolis, and Carson Wentz was out for the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. Maybe you can go in there and be a starter. But and then part of it is Bill Belichick is the most ruthless mother effer in the NFL. He doesn't care who you are. If you're not part of his plan, you're gone. I think Tom Brady to a certain extent felt that, right? I don't think they kicked him out. I think they would have kept him in the door. But the Logan Mankins of the world, and there's countless stories where the Patriots have just let someone go without really any reason. He just didn't fit the team anymore.
All right, so let's focus more on the Mac Jones and the rookie quarterbacks, because I watched every quarterback. I watched their snaps. I think you always have to start with saying it's just the preseason. Most of these guys, for the most part, going against the other team's backups or against guys that don't make the team. You still obviously want to see them have success, so take everything with a grain of salt. But I watched every quarterback, and what I thought was interesting of the 5 quarterbacks is they all looked exactly how I thought they would look. Like, I thought there was a lot of good with a lot of them. I thought there was some bad, but everyone looked about how I thought they would look. I thought Trevor Lawrence at times looked unbelievable because he's an unbelievable prospect, but the Jaguars aren't a good team, and he's going to struggle behind that offensive line. I thought Zach Wilson did a lot of cool things in a new offense.
Flashy,
flashy, but he's got a little gunslinger to him, and I think you're going to, I thought Trey Lance did some things, obviously as Niner fans, that I was like, holy shit, this is exciting, but a lot of inconsistencies, needs reps because he hasn't played a long time. Justin Fields, I'll be honest, now you're going to call me biased because I said I thought Justin Fields.
Yeah, I agree.
But I will say, trying to be unbiased, just watching the games, the one I was most impressed with, I thought everything given together was Justin Fields. That was my personal opinion. I thought from the start, I thought he was going to the worst situation. Even worse, I thought, than Trevor Lawrence going to the Jags. Maybe not, maybe because the team, and who knows about Urban Meyer if he's going to be a good NFL coach. But I just did not like that Bears fit for Justin Fields, and I thought he looked really good. He looked exactly like I thought he would look. And then Mac Jones looked exactly how I thought he would look. And I thought what got overplayed a little bit was Niner fans, or just the media in general, when there was so much pushback on Mac Jones going 3 to the Niners, was that meant people thought he wasn't good, or that he wasn't, like he shouldn't even been a first-round pick. He's not even a starter in the NFL. And I maybe I didn't do a good enough job of saying it, but I think, at least for me personally, and most of the people I saw that were all like, yeah, you can't draft Mac at 3 and blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, he's a first-round quarterback. He's a good prospect. It's just if I was ranking them, where I'd rank them, he would go behind all these guys. And I thought he went to a great spot. I thought he went where he should have gone.
Yeah.
And where he went is that you're looking at a legit starting NFL quarterback.
Sure.
And I thought that's what he looked like. I thought the games I saw, I think, happened to be the Patriots commentating crew. Mm-hmm. And I thought in general, people were pumping him up a little too much. I thought he was checking the ball down, throwing some screens, and they were like, "Oh my God, he understands the offense." He just checked the ball down. I mean, let's calm down. And I thought he was I thought there was a case to be made, maybe outside of Trevor Lawrence, but maybe even with Trevor Lawrence, that he had the highest floor of the quarterbacks. So, like, the idea that, he would come in if he fell to a team like a Patriots or Washington football team was another team around that time. Like, if he fell to a team with a good foundation around him, he's probably the most ready to start right now and be a productive starter in the NFL. And I think that's kind of how he looked. I wasn't as wowed by some of his stuff. I was like, he's efficient. He finds the guy. He's going to get the guy, the open guy, the ball. I think if you really put the game on his shoulders, I think he's limited in what he can do. But I think he could be a very good starting quarterback in the NFL. And I thought even in the preseason against backups, I thought he looked that way. And not as flashy as maybe. So I also thought I thought some of his ball placement at time wasn't great. I know, stats wise he had great completion numbers and all that stuff. There was a couple I saw where I was like, we talk about ball placement a lot. Where I was like, the ball placement there, the receivers having to dive for a ball if he leads them. It's a bigger game, stuff like that, and just I think the question with Mac Jones coming in was always, how is he throwing into tight windows? Because at Alabama, he didn't have a lot of those throws because those guys are running wide open. And at least from my scene, while I thought he looked very good, there still wasn't a lot of those I saw in preseason. And so I think, that's why I just mean everyone looked how I thought they were going to look. It's exciting, but I still feel kind of take everything with a grain of salt, and we'll see where it goes from here. But I guess part of my prediction, I know I'm kind of ranting here, but part of my prediction with the whole Cam Newton getting released thing is I kind of felt after seeing where everyone went and Mac Jones going to the Patriots and who the Patriots were, it made sense to me with Mac Jones, who I thought had a high floor coming into it, that he would be a week one starter as opposed to Trey Lance and Justin Fields. Yeah. And I think if the Jets had a more had a better veteran quarterback on the Jets roster, I don't think it would have been crazy for maybe Zach Wilson not to be starting. So it made sense to me that Mac, even though he was a fifth quarterback taken, he'd be one of the few that would start
early
right away.
Starters. Yeah. I think the most impressive thing about Mac was, like you said, he kind of was who we thought he was, right? And what we thought he was kind of the question mark for what if he was going to be a good NFL quarterback, right? Because he didn't have that laser arm like Zach Wilson and Trey Lance have, and he doesn't obviously have the mobility of any of the four quarterbacks, let alone the top guys in this draft class. So who he is that going to translate to a startable / above average quarterback in the NFL? And obviously it's the preseason, but it looked like it did because everything he did, again, this is a baseball guy talking about football here, but the pre-snap stuff, the reading of the defense and being able to see what they're throwing at you, what Tom Brady did and does so well. Just throwing to open receivers. Obviously we had, you laughed about it, but throwing the screen or throwing the check down, that's part of being a competent NFL quarterback, right? And
absolutely.
I think part of, like you said, maybe he's not fitting the ball into tight windows, like these other guys are. But if you're doing, throwing the open guy, if you're scheming the right play and reading the defense, you don't always have to fit the ball in a tight window, right? Obviously it's going to make you a better quarterback, and the great ones do. But if you're throwing the slant to the guy that's got the better matchup, he's probably going to have two steps, and you don't have to fit the ball in the tight window. So that was my obviously very small sample size takeaway from the preseason for what Mac did, was exactly kind of what we thought he did at Alabama and he would do in the NFL. Would it translate against, like you said, second stringers, guys that maybe might not make teams, and against borderline starters? Then it worked. When week one here in 4 or 5 days, we're going to find out whether that matches up, that plays.
Well, you touched on something I wanted to talk about, because one of the things I did think with Mac, which I thought I would have graded him very highly in, is when you talk about mobility, I think some people don't quite understand everything that goes into it. That mobility for a quarterback isn't always, at least for me, not necessarily just the guys that can run. It's not just Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray, or now Justin Fields and Trey Lance and those guys. Mobility a lot of times is just how you move in the pocket.
Yeah.
And that you can be a mobile quarterback And if you finesse the pocket and you can move in the pocket well, like that is also a trait of mobility for a quarterback. And that when you talk about quarterbacks needing to have mobility, I actually thought Mac had some of the better mobility of the quarterbacks. That at Alabama, he has the best offensive line in football, and he had all these weapons. But when there's just little maneuvers, and I think also one of the things that Tom Brady is one of the best at. That
he's the best at this.
Well, there's a lot of good guys. But I'm just saying, the point I'm making is where you would go, Tom Brady's not mobile because he doesn't run fast. Well, I would say you could classify him in a group of mobile quarterbacks in the sense he does such a good job of maneuvering in the pocket.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an area I thought Mac Jones was really good at Alabama, and where you'd want to obviously see that continue to the NFL. So no, he's not going to make the same plays that the elite of the elite athletically quarterbacks are making, but he does have I think a decent amount of mobility in what he is able to do in the pocket, and I think also you saw at times at Alabama, like, he's kind of one of those sneaky athletes that, no, you're not calling read options with him all the time, but if you do let him break contain, like he maybe could pick up a first down, or he buys himself enough time to find the open receiver. But another thing, when we talk about finding the open receiver and fitting the ball in tight windows, I know I brought the tight windows thing up, and I think that's important, is that a lot of times I feel like what's lost on the guys throwing to open receivers is part of it is you have to find the open receiver.
Yeah.
And that while, sometimes, Patrick Mahomes or Rodgers, it's like, oh, that was an easy touchdown because the guy was wide open. And I was like, well, part of it is that they read it and they saw him wide open.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I think about when thinking about quarterback play and how some people talk about quarterbacks is watch, try to, obviously you never want a starter to get hurt, but watch an offense with a starting quarterback and then watch that same offense with the backup quarterback or the third string quarterback. It's funny how, the wide open receivers don't. Offense. Yeah, because you go, where are the wide open receivers? I'm like, they're still there. It's just that guy is not able to recognize it. I remember, obviously, we'll get to the 49ers at some point, but as a 49ers fan last year, we went through all three of the quarterbacks, and not to shit on C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins, but there was a lot of, after the games, the people I follow going over the games where it's like, there's guys running wide open all over the place. Kyle Shanahan, that was a touchdown right there. He missed it. And had he thrown it, you would have been, oh my God, that's an easy touchdown. He was wide open. It's like, well, it wasn't because he didn't even recognize him. So part of the battle is just identifying and understanding the offense and understanding what defense is trying to do to you, that you can recognize the open guy. So at the Bear, that's why I think like the game manager and people that get on Jimmy Garoppolo or even Alex Smith kind of in his prime, that I was always like, I don't understand why it's a bad thing to say somebody executes the offense at a very high level. Now, I think you say that they're limited in that what they can do and take it to the next level. But if at the very least, the Patriots, who I think very highly of Bill Belichick, if the Patriots get a quarterback that executes the offense at a high level, I have a belief that the Patriots are going to be a very good team. Because I think they also have a good defense. I think they have makings that could be a good running game. It's like, yeah, if Mac Jones is constantly reading the defense, finding open receivers, converting third downs, they're going to be a good team. And I think if you get that from the 15th overall pick, the 5th quarterback draft, I'd say that's a good pick.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of thinking about that. We were obviously going over what we wanted to talk about a little bit. And if you go back to, obviously the early Patriot dynasty years, the 2001 Super Bowl with the Rams and, through the 2004, even up until like 2006, right? The year before Randy Moss got there, that was the blueprint, right? It was have a good defense and have a good stable of running backs and let Tom Brady not be an MVP. Let Tom Brady be a guy who's going to win us games. And, I think that's really where you are this year. They got, they've had a good defense in the, 2 years ago, right? In Tom Brady's last year, they had maybe the best defensive football. And obviously they got, I think, a little bit lucky, whatever you want to call it, with the AFC East was really bad that year. I think they had a lot, 6 games against the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills. The Dolphins and Jets were two of the worst teams in the league. So, but don't take anything away from it. They had one of the best defenses. They had the defensive player of the year in Stefan Gilmore, who's still there.
Statistically had the number one defense in the league.
Yeah, sure. Let's play the brevity game and shut up, Connor. So we had Stefan Gilmore hurt, still on the team, but you've got the guys that they picked up. They've spent a lot of money. I think you alluded to it earlier. A lot of money on the defensive side of the ball with these guys. So, again, they're going to be a really good defense on paper, right? Statistically, if Bill Belichick can do what Bill Belichick typically does, make a good defense, I think they're going to have, I think you're going to enjoy watching this football team because I think, they're going to have a really, really good offense coordinator, right? Josh McDaniels has had Tom Brady, but if he is as good as people think he is, he's going to scheme up really good offense. I think they're going to have one of the best offensive lines in all of football. That is something I'm super excited about. Damian Harris, I think, is a very good two-down back. I think he's a great running back. Obviously, they have the James Whites of the world who's going to catch balls out of the backfield. So, I think that's what I have in my head is this. Let's go back to 2004, 2005, New England Patriots. Let's get guys. Nelson Aguilar's and Kendrick Bournes of the world who are just going to do the right things. And
you're already the biggest Kendrick Bourne fan. You haven't even seen him play a regular
game. I love Kendrick Bourne. I love him so much. But yeah, that's kind of what I have in my head. And like you kind of alluded to, Mac Jones isn't going to be a world beater. He's just going to be who he needs to be, and that's who the Patriots need him to be.
Right.
That was another great soundbite.
So transitioning a little bit. How much of all the rookie quarterbacks did you watch?
Less than you.
I'm just saying, did you see? If I were to ask you your thoughts in general on those,
I saw a little bit of everyone. I saw less of Trevor Lawrence and less of Zach Wilson. Okay. For not on purpose, just
for our listeners. That leaves Trey Lance and Justin Fields as the only guys you watched. Okay, so if I were to just say, give me your thoughts on those guys, and then I'll try to transition that so we can talk a little bit about my team, the 49ers.
I think so. One of the downsides or one of the negatives to Justin Fields, and we kind of picked this apart on our draft podcast, was that he holds the ball too long, right? Or he doesn't he doesn't get through his read. It was kind of opposite because he doesn't get through his reads. But then he also holds the ball too long. Like, how can you do both of those things?
Well, he doesn't get through his reads quick enough, I guess, is what they would say.
He did, like you said, he was the same guy he was, who we thought he was. He still held on to the ball. Like, I thought I saw a stat that said, like, time to snap or snap to pass was still one of the longer ones in quarterbacks. And guess what? It still friggin' worked. Like, he was still out there. He's kind of that guy, if you want to call Mac Jones and Tom Brady like one kind of mobile. He is that kind of mobile on steroids, right? He's a huge, huge dude. He's, quicker footed. He can run if he wants to, but he's not looking to run. He's not Lamar Jackson where the first read, second read's not there, I'm gone. Like, he's not out of the pocket. He's not, dipping out on the play right away. He's letting everything around him develop. And I thought that's exactly what he did in college. Unfortunately, I saw it a decent amount at Ohio State, and I thought he, did the exact same thing in the preseason.
Well, just to keep talking about my point of the mobility thing, is that I think a lot of times, I think what the conversation as the game starting to transition to more running style quarterbacks is that I think ideally if you're a coach or if you're an offensive coordinator, you don't want, you're not hoping for broken down plays. You're not wanting your quarterback to break out of the pocket and make a huge play. Obviously, it's great if a quarterback can do that, but ideally, the play, if you stick to the play works, right? And that there's more value, I think, placed on quarterbacks that don't look to leave the pocket, that stay in the pocket and just maneuver around to make the play, from the pocket. Obviously, you allude to Tom Brady being what you call the best. I, in my opinion, think Aaron Rodgers is the best that I've seen. He also makes plays out of the pocket, but he just does such a good job of just sliding, stepping up, just finding that open pocket in the pocket, so to speak, and then and to me, that's why he's one of the greats to do it. And that sometimes with the quarterbacks like a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance or Lamar Jackson, those guys, because they're so gifted running, is they look to leave the pocket too early. And that where it's like, I mean, these plays are huge, and they can make these plays out of the pocket. And I know I said pocket like 100 times, but they can do it, and it's exciting. But that there might be more value in someone that stays inside the area. I'm not going to say it again, and makes plays. So like some like Justin Fields, where I saw a lot of his big plays were, and what he does is great. Is he gets on the run and he makes big plays on the field,
and that
right, and that sometimes that's the downside to quarterbacks that can run as well as they do, is they don't let plays develop sometimes fully because they feel more comfortable on the run.
Yeah,
and obviously
they can get 6 yards with their feet, or they they could get 35 with the.
Also,
the
it just
cross.
as to use some of the lingo I've heard from some of the talking heads and whatnot is and then when you get outside of the pocket, it's not so muddy there. You don't have all these people. You have a much clearer view of the field, and now you're dealing with maybe DBs that are trying to tackle just but these big 300-pound guys, and you're just more comfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
Not staying in that box where DNs and D tackles can tackle you. So that is, I think, some of the criticism on Justin Fields. Obviously, I've been very clear about where I would take him. But I also some of the stuff I saw where his big plays are going to be kind of on the run in broken down plays. But I think as you've alluded to, like that still works, and that's still exciting, and you can have a fun offense with it. I think more fun than one with Andy Dalton, but that's just me. That's just my opinion. Matt Nagy obviously disagrees with me.
Week 1 starter Andy Dalton,
but good for Matt Nagy sticking to his guns. I hope his search for a new job after the season goes well for him. Anyway,
is that a better prediction?
Anyway, I'll say this: if he sticks with Andy Dalton the entire season and they miss the playoffs, he's gone.
Yeah, I don't see any way in which all five rookies are not starters at one point. Like, I think I mean, it's not a bold prediction, it's not a hot take by any means, but I think by week 11, all five.
You think the 5 first-round quarterbacks are going to be played by their team at some point
by week 11? Yeah.
Is that your hot take? It's
not a hot. Yeah, okay. I don't think it's like on the scale of like hot takes. It's probably like smack dab in the middle. It's like a 63. But I would say week 11 they're all starting.
All right, now let's get into what we all came here for, and that's 49ers talk, and that's Trey Lance talk. What do you think of the 49ers situation, how they're handling Trey Lance? What did you think of Trey Lance in the preseason? And then I'll kind of tell you what I think.
Yeah, I think that you set this podcast up. I mean, you are a freaking pro. You set it up. We'll keep going back to this, but he was who we thought he was. He was going to struggle because he hasn't played against a top tier talent, ever. However far that goes back, he hasn't really played football in a long time. He hasn't played as much football, I guess, as the other guys had played in a long time due to COVID. So I thought he looked a little bit. It's hard to say rusty because he was still, athletically better than a lot of people that were out there. I thought he made probably the most impressive throws. Right? I mean, there were some like deep balls and
big wow moments. He had a lot of wow moments.
Huge wow moments. I thought as a guy who's still learning the position going to do, that he missed passes that most of the other guys don't miss. I think all 4 of those guys, there's probably 7 to 10 passes. Maybe that's a big number, but in a small sample size, 5 to 7 passes that Trey Lance just missed that the other guys probably don't miss.
Right.
I will say,
but just on that point, that's the 2 sides of it. He also made 5 or 6 passes that the other guys can't make.
Don't make.
So so I mean, some of them can because
you're at a net neutral, sure. Right. But I think I would love to get your take on who you think he's going to be this year, and then potentially his career comp. But the one thing that was. And this is even smaller of a sample size because I don't know how you can tell me a little bit more how often they ran it. But man, when they put like a guy in motion and they run the read option with Trey Lance, there was times where he would, the play action and give the ball and do his like little fake run, thinking they had the ball. The entire linebacking core just went with him. And then Mostert, Sermon, whoever it was, up the middle, they beat one guy and he's gone for 15 yards before he's touched. Right. That might be a cheat code.
Right. So, I think, and that's why most people's reaction to Trey Lance being drafted by the Niners, that the Niners had, outside of the Ravens that one year, I mean, since Kyle Shanahan's been there, they've had the number 1 rushing attack in football. I mean, this goes back to Mike Shanahan's dad. The Broncos are always good at running the ball. It's one of the greatest run offenses in football history, really. If you go back through his dad in the 49er years when Mike Shanahan was OC at the 49ers. So they've always been able to run the football. And now you're adding a guy that can also, the quarterback who can also run the football. It's like, this was already unfair for guys. They already had motion, and then you had Kittle and Juszczyk blocking, and it was already a mismatch with trying to catch up to Mostert. And now you have to also account for the quarterback might keep it. So I think that's why most people are like, yeah, if Kyle Shanahan got a mobile quarterback, it's already hard enough to stop. Now it just makes it that much harder. They definitely – so here's what I'll say about Trey Lance, because they definitely seem to make a point not to showcase his running ability that much in the preseason. I think they did it in the third preseason game because Kyle Shanahan admitted we're using this as kind of the dress rehearsal for the season. Everyone handles the last preseason game differently, but Kyle Shanahan said that's what they were going to do, and that's really the only time Trey Lance ran, but not really ran. They used the offense that they would use maybe with Trey Lance, but specifically he did not keep the ball very much. I think he kept it maybe on one read, but it seemed like they were very much like, no, Trey, like you're not running in preseason. So like you said, I think he definitely showed some inconsistencies. I also think he did lead, all preseason, all quarterbacks, not just rookies, in drop passes. I think he had like 10 drop passes in the preseason where I saw some people being like, his completion percentage was so bad. It's like, well, if he also had some bad drops for some people. I'm like, if you add those in, I mean, it really wouldn't have been that bad from a statistical standpoint. But no, he definitely had some areas that didn't look good, and he had some areas that did really look good. I think the problem with Trey Lance moving forward is that we talked about it on the last or on one of the draft podcasts of how I think we're both in favor of rookie quarterbacks can sit and they can learn the game and they can learn the offense, and it's okay if they don't play right away. Where I think what makes it interesting with Trey Lance is he is kind of the opposite, where like all of his issues to me seem to be that they'll be cured by reps and just getting more reps. And if the idea is that the reason you took him over Justin Fields or Mac Jones for that is that his mental capacity was so superior to them, and that they said he was able to understand the playbook right away. He was able to understand the offense right away. And he doesn't need to learn how to be a pro. He's already a pro. He's already very mature for his age. Like all that stuff. His issue seems to be inconsistencies, which is he needs more playing time. Yeah. And he needs reps, and I have gone back and forth on if they should, start Jimmy or they should start Trey Lance. And for the longest time, I was Jimmy and let Trey learn and whatnot. And then I ultimately came to the decision that I think it's a mistake that Trey Lance isn't the starting quarterback, because for a couple reasons. One, like I just said, he just needs reps. He needs to play more. Two, I think similar to what I said about the Patriots, the Niners' formula for success is defense and run game for the most part. And you sprinkle in Trey Lance's unbelievable plays, and you live with his couple bad ones. I think that's a really good team. And I think, ultimately, if Jimmy was a different style quarterback, I know we can debate how good you think Jimmy is, but like, if Jimmy didn't turn the ball over as much as he did, which I don't have a problem with quarterbacks throwing interceptions every once in a while, but the way I saw it some ways, like Jimmy still makes rookie mistakes. Like Jimmy still throws an interception or two. You're just like, what were you doing? And then he comes back and he leads a drive, and you're like, okay, like Jimmy's a good quarterback. But like if he was like, because I see a lot of people comparing the situation to Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. And I think while they're both, Jimmy and Alex, were at similar parts of their career where it's like, he's a good quarterback, but clearly we've reached the limit of where this offense can go. But Alex Smith was just a different style quarterback. He was a little bit more of the game manager. Yeah. He was efficient, but he would never turn the ball over. Whereas Jimmy, he kind of has one or two bad mistakes a game anyway. It's like, well, if you're going to get that from Jimmy, you're also going to get that from Trey Lance, but Trey Lance can give you so much more than Jimmy. I would rather go with Trey, and I think that's ultimately why I'm interested to see how they use him. I mean, they said they're going to sprinkle him in there. I'm not as big of a fan of the two quarterback tandem, kind of like one guy goes a couple plays and the next guy comes. If they did it how they did it against the Raiders in the third preseason game, I don't. That seems a little gimmicky to me. That's my opinion. And the Niners did this a little bit with Kaepernick early on. Some people don't remember, but like he would come in for a couple plays or whatnot. They'd run some read options. He rarely ever threw, like in his rookie year. And I don't know. I just always was like, this is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Like especially I don't know. I guess I'm I'm talking too much to ultimately come back to my point is that Trey Lance just needs more reps. And so to me, I'd put him out there.
There's
and
only
I'd
one way
live
to
with
get
the
him
bet.
reps. Yeah.
I'd live with the bet.
I think the most rational, you said a lot of rational things, but the rational thing is that, yeah, you're right. Jimmy does make those mistakes, right? So, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't know if that's the right scale, but, like, how many mistakes is Trey Lance going to make, right? Like, ideally, if you're not starting him week 1, it's because he's going to make the most mistakes of, your sample size, or your quarterbacks. If he's a 9 on that scale, Alex Smith is a 2 or 3, right? So Jimmy's probably like a 7, right? Like that's not that big of a gap to then rationalize Trey Lance's abilities are a 10, Jimmy's is a 3, right? Like that's I am still, again, this is an outsider's perspective. This is not watching the full preseason game all 3 weeks, but I still probably start Jimmy until you get a little bit more confident that Trey Lance is not going to lose you a game, right? I mean, how many games has Jimmy Garoppolo lost the Niners? And that's not a great way to look at it because, like one person does not a football game make, whatever they say.
I don't know how to answer that question because if you're saying he lost it because he, just threw a bunch of picks and he couldn't even move the ball, but I would also say any game they lost where he did not up his game enough to help them win, I would say Jimmy played a part in losing that game.
Yeah.
Because he didn't play to his abilities to help them win it. So I guess my thing is more like, I think ultimately it's like I see Trey having probably like 3 to 5, depending on the game, plays a game where you're like, man, that was bad. Miss a guy, maybe like we talked about, just miss the open guy, didn't see him, a bad throw, not great clock management, takes a sack where he shouldn't take a sack, whatever, rookie mistakes. And then I started thinking, I'm like, that's about the number we get from Jimmy every game. and I'm a big Jimmy guy, and I think he's really good. But I'm like, that's about equal to what we get from Jimmy. And one of the things I love about Jimmy is how he responds to that. And when he throws an interception, he comes back out the next drive, and I think he had like the highest scoring percentage off of a turnover of any of the quarterbacks in the NFL. Like he always comes back and he flushes it, and that's a great quality. But I'm like, if that's all the great qualities that Trey also possesses, and that's why you liked him so much, take him. I'm like, I just feel like you're getting mistake. Either one of those guys, you're getting mistakes in the game. You've established that. But one of the guys you've invested in your future, and you're hoping to iron out those mistakes so they don't become a pattern. That I'd rather go with the young guy. And I heard somebody say to the point of like, oh, wait to play him until he's ready. And you're like, how do you know when a guy's ready?
You'll never know.
There's no such thing as like a guy's ready now. It's like you got to just kind of find out.
It's not a video game. Like you get a video. Like you've earned up enough practice reps. You are officially ready for the first game.
Because being ready essentially is as we've alluded to is like, okay, now you're ready to play an NFL defense. And all that, it's like, there's no way to simulate that. So we're either going to find out together you're ready or not. I don't understand. And because also my understanding of a backup quarterback when the season starts is you don't get a lot of practice reps when you're the backup. There's it's not like
scout team, right?
Right. Yeah. It's not training camp where you ones and twos. It's once season starts, everyone's ones. And you work the starters, and the back, and like I don't think the second quarterback gets a lot of reps. So if he's not getting reps in practice, I don't understand this wait till he's ready thing.
What if this is again a hard thing for you to you have not inside the building, but if Trey Lance and Jimmy G
hold that thought. I realize I forgot to plug my computer in, and it's about to die.
That would have been pretty funny. You got to admit.
I apologize for that. Hopefully, you remember the thought you're about to make.
Jimmy
G, Trey Lance.
Oh yeah. Are you gonna have to cut this, or is this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to cut that part out where I had to get up and go find my charger. That's never happened to me before.
Fumble your headphones.
But I feel like it was. I want to try to keep it. I want to try to keep it going. So. Yeah.
So if Jimmy G and Trey Lance started 16 games this year, right? Put them in 2 different buckets. What I want to do actually is the first 5 games. I don't know who the opponents are. That doesn't really matter. Does Trey Lance win as many, less, or or more games than Jimmy G in 5 games? Your first 5.
So I think the way I would answer that is, I don't think there's any game that I go, Jimmy would have won that and Trey would lose that, I guess would be my point. I think, but there are more games where I'm like, maybe Trey could single-handedly win that game, whereas Jimmy's less likely to just kind of put the team on his back.
Well, yeah, there's a chance, right? In there's a chance. Who do you know who the Niners play? I don't even know who the Pats play.
The first week they play the Lions. Second week is the Eagles. They play the Eagles second week, and then they play the Packers week 3. They go on the road weeks 1 and week 2 at Lions, at Eagles, and then their home opener is week 3 against the Packers.
Okay.
It's another thing. A lot of people are like, the Lions and Eagles games, like those theoretically would be like, ease your rookie into those games. Those are pretty favorable. I know they're on the road, but neither of those defenses are very good, and I think the Niners are. I mean, they're favored to win those games. So I don't know. I guess my ultimate point comes back to you're gonna have to just live with the inconsistencies early on with Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. I have a problem thinking, and I will continue to hammer this point home until I die, that to me Justin Fields should have been the guy. And you didn't, and I have this problem thinking that you decided on Trey Lance, and yet you're surprised by the fact that he has these inconsistencies. Like, this was always part of the Trey Lance thing. So, like, just Trey live Lance with experience. It. Yeah, like, you knew going in, he had the least amount of snaps. He had sat out a year. There were some things that he had to clean up. So to me, acting like, now we're not willing to live with that, to me seems a little weird. Just like that should be the thing. And as we talked about, the formula for the Niners, to me, how Kyle Shanahan wants to do. I think ultimately what Kyle Shanahan wants to do is throw the ball down the field more than he's done. And I think that's ultimately also why he wanted Trey Lance, because Jimmy can't really do that. But right now the formula is to run the football on offense effectively and play good defense. And I keep coming back to, as we talked about, Trey Lance helps you run the ball more than Jimmy does. And I saw so many people talking. There was only a couple reps in the preseason, but a lot of people talking about, like, in all honesty, how do you stop this running attack with Trey Lance out there? Like, if you have Brandon Ayuk in motion or Deebo Samuel in motion, and you have Mostert, who's arguably outside of Tyreek Hill, like the fastest guy in football.
I think statistically he is.
Yeah. And then you have Trey Lance who can also run it. And you got George Kittle, blocking out in front. It's like, how do you stop this attack, not knowing who has the ball? Right. And by the time you figure out who has the ball, they're by you. Yeah. Like, how do you stop this? I don't know how Kyle Shanahan is someone who wants to run the football and play defense. I don't understand how that doesn't just intrigue the shit out of you. Obviously, it does because they picked him, but like, I don't understand how you can. I know they're going to use him in packages, but to me, I would just be like, let's just go all in. Let's let him get his rookie kinks out. And also, I've seen the point made that I agree with, is that the best case scenario would be like, maybe it takes him, week 6, week 7, where he's still kind of showing rookie mistakes. And like you said, maybe they don't start off the year very hot. But the idea is maybe he hits his stride as he gets comfortable as the season goes on. And then by the time, if you're fortunate enough to be in the playoff race, now you've enhanced your chances to maybe win a Super Bowl. I know no rookie ever has. But now a guy playing at his Trey Lance playing at his highest level is going to be better than Jimmy playing at his highest level. Sure. So if you start Trey the entire season, maybe the hope is by the end of the season, while also easing him in and getting a playoff spot and whatnot, that by the time you get there after 17 games, now he's really ready to hit the ground running, and maybe you can do things in the playoffs that you wouldn't have been able to if Jimmy was the guy. Yeah,
so I think the devil's advocate is the playoffs, right? I mean, obviously it's a tough division out there, the NFC West. Like, if this is not my opinion, if Trey Lance goes 1-3 in the first 4 weeks, where maybe potentially you think Jimmy could go 3-1, that's like,
I don't feel that way.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm not asking you to. I don't know if I feel that way, but
I'm just saying I'm not even going to entertain that thought, because to me, if they were to go 1-3, no, I'm not. There's nothing that has suggested in his career, even though I'm a Jimmy G fan, if they go 1-3, there's nothing to be like, well, if Jimmy was out there, they would have won. I would have gone, oh, maybe their defense isn't playing as well as I thought, or maybe Kyle Shanahan's game plan in this game wasn't as good as I would have thought. There's nothing that Trey Lance, I feel like, could do going 1-3, where I'd be like, hey, Jimmy would have been performing at such a higher level. Because I've seen Jimmy play at times where I'm like, yeah, if our defense wasn't good right now, if our run game wasn't good right now, we probably would have lost this game. So that's why I'm saying the only way they go 1-3 is if those aspects to me aren't as good as they should be, and it's less on the quarterback play. So that's why there's no scenario where if Trey Lance were to start and lose where I would go, I know for a fact they would have won if Jimmy wasn't there.
That's not true. That's not true. I mean, you don't see it happen. Just because you don't see it happening doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like, listen,
that's exactly what that means.
Hate to burst your bubble. Trey Lance could go 9 of 22 in Week 1 against the Lions, throw 2 picks, and they lose that game.
I've seen Jimmy do that.
Yeah, but it's less likely to happen. I think the percentages of it are. I'm playing devil's advocate. That's just all I'm saying is that if you want to go to the playoffs, if you want to compete this year, right, if this is a win now team, which it seems like it's built to absolutely win now with this defense, with like the players that you just mentioned, the Kittles, the Ayuks, the Mosterts. If you go 1-3 in the first 4 weeks versus 3-1. Now you're probably on the outside looking in, against the NFC West. But
then it was a bad pick. Then you shouldn't have picked him. But at some point you got to put your guy out there and trust that you've made the correct evaluation. Trust in your coaching staff. Trust in your players. I have a hard time looking at it from a standpoint. We were so aggressive in this move up for him, and now we're worried that maybe he doesn't play well and we'll start losing games. That to me, you went from an aggressive winning mentality to a fucking loser's mentality of now we're worried about the worst possible thing that can happen. And I don't like that. I don't know. That's me.
I want to end this. I don't want to end the Niners segment, but I want to end the Trey Lance talk with. I am so friggin' excited to watch him play. I'm a Jimmy G fan, and maybe there's some sort of emotional connection because we talked about so many Niners things. I don't know why this didn't come up on our when we were talking about baseball, but there's now a very vivid memory in my head where we got into. It was not just me and you because a lot of it was me and you, but sometimes other guys would chime in. What freaking town were we in? Like some podunk town in the minor leagues where the Waffle House was really far away from our hotel. It was like a three quarters of a mile walk, and we got in like a borderline shouting match about Colin Kaepernick and how he was like, obviously you were pro Kaepernick, other guys were not pro Kaepernick. This is Colin Kaepernick football career, and Bennett Barry stormed out of Waffle House. And he walked his ass back to the hotel by himself. There was like 7 of us in there. A team bonding thing. And Colin Kaepernick, I'll vividly remember this now. Like, I could tell you, like, the area, there was, like, condos. Like, the hotel was, like, over this, like, long stretch of, like, kind of strip mall highway-esque. And we were at a Waffle House, and Colin Kaepernick got you so fired up.
I just have a hard time.
You didn't pay your bill. You didn't walk out. You paid your bill.
I have a hard time believing that happened. For one reason, I love talking sports, and it is one of the things I love so much. I like waffles more, so I have a tough time believing that I would have been so upset I would have left Waffle House. I have a hard time believing that. But if that's what you say happened, that's what you say happened.
It happened.
On that note, I guess I never answered your question of when you asked me what I saw for Trey Lance going forward, and this will end it. But I do I guess the easy comp kind of is Kaepernick, like just the football side of it. I understand when you bring up Kaepernick, there's so many elements to Kaepernick, but just like the football, the side of it, like when he was good. I guess you could say both things. Like Kaepernick being really good. When Kaepernick was good, I would make a case if that had continued, I got it right. Then he would have been one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. It obviously didn't happen. So I'm saying the best case scenario is, and even as that, there were some inconsistencies. You lived with them. So best case scenario, I think Trey Lance is good Kaepernick, which would be a home run pick to me. And worst case scenario, and also could happen, is the bad Kaepernick that we saw. It was just too many inconsistencies, never quite evolved his game enough. Obviously, there was a lot of other stuff going on, but I guess that's kind of an easy comp and career trajectory that I see for Trey Lance.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's another easy one as well where obviously you probably add a little bit of speed to the game. Josh Allen can move a little bit, right? But that's an easy comp, right? Where he comes out super raw, small school, not much competition, comes into a team that's, I guess the Niners are probably a better team now than the Bills were 2 years ago, but and that's, I think, where part of the, what was I saying? Josh Allen struggled his first year,
right?
And that's
first 2 years really for a lot of it.
Really,
I know they made the playoff. Last year was his third year, so I know they made the playoffs in the second year. But there was still a lot of times in the second year that there were some struggles. Like his jump from year 2 to year 3 was still a huge jump.
Well, he was, yeah. I mean, if we're gonna, I don't want to do a spoiler alert, but if we're gonna do MVP picks, I mean, he's got to be top 3 in the AFC. I mean, he was that good last year, and he's probably only gonna get better.
So we'll officially end the Trey Lance talking. We can kind of get more into that stuff. I know you were I didn't mean to cut you off a point. I know you were saying is the similarities between Trey Lance and Josh Allen. I agree. There are some inconsistencies, and if Trey Lance can make the improvements that Josh Allen did, obviously great. On the Josh Allen front, when you're talking about MVP, I'm interested to see Josh Allen this year, and that because I didn't think he was very good the year before last. Whatever it was, that was year 2, year 3, whatever it was. So I thought his one real outstanding year was this past year, and he was incredible. But I'm interested to see, maybe was this a one-off thing, or is this kind of who he is now? And I actually think there is some mystery in if he'll be as productive as he was this past year, and I'm interested to see that.
I think he was pretty good in the preseason, and again, you always take the preseason with a grain of salt, but he did in the preseason what he did last year was just sling the ball to open receivers. He has his number one, his alpha number one now in Diggs. They've got Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, I think, is their wide receiver too. So, but yeah, I think the small sample size of the preseason showed that last year wasn't a fluke, and that's me using the beat reporters and my small sample size of.
So I guess what I'll say is not even so much of the year, but I also think Brian Daboll played a big part in his success, and obviously being, I think, one of the better offensive coordinators in football now. That I think a lot of people thought maybe he would leave to be a head coach, and he didn't. That maybe I'm waiting to see if the same thing happens again this year. I have a tough time thinking that Brian Daboll won't leave and be a head coach somewhere. That maybe when that happens and having to get a new offensive coordinator, a new offense in there, if that has any effect of it. I don't want to just say that I'm just every year I'm going to be like, oh, now that things have changed, we'll see about Josh Allen. But I just think in general I'm just curious to see where Josh Allen goes. I still have a little bit of doubt if he's quite on that tier as where I have like Mahomes and Rodgers and those guys right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's kind of like the point we led into was that in the MVP race, like I do think he could be that guy. I also think part of the MVP is the court of public opinion and looking for the next flashy thing, right? Like that's why LeBron hasn't won 7 MVPs or 8 MVPs, whatever it is, because realistically he could win the damn thing every year, right? But people want something different. So I think, not to say Patrick Mahomes has gotten there now, but I think, soon he's going to. And he's almost already at that level where, Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback in the NFL, but give him the MVP again, it's not really fun. It doesn't really do it. That doesn't write stories. Josh Allen, the heralded, toolsy, raw quarterback from
Wyoming.
I was going to say Montana.
Same thing.
They're all the same out there, up there.
I don't think we have listeners out there, so.
Actually,
that might not be true. I apologize.
That part of the country.
I apologize to all of our listeners in Wyoming, Montana. Wyoming and Montana, not Wyoming, Montana.
All 3 of you up there.
All right, so I think we're somewhat strapped for time because you don't have a charger for your laptop.
Yeah, thanks for telling that to the public.
Well, they need to know.
But I have chargers up in Wyoming anyways. So.
I was going to ask you a little bit on you gave Josh Allen as your MVP prediction. I think we could kind of, the predictions of awards I'm not big on, but maybe we could, because we were talking about the rookies, do you have maybe like an offensive rookie of the year that you see that is not one of the quarterbacks that was taken? And if so,
That's a good question. I mean, I do want to give you some credit doing a little bit more. Not to downplay how much I care about our podcast, our draft podcast, because that was one of the more fun things I've done all year. But I've watched more like Najee Harris film now, back in college and through the preseason for fantasy football purposes, which is kind of embarrassing, but. I am so wildly impressed with him. I still think Travis Etienne is up there as well in terms of a running back, a modern day running back prospect.
Well, he can't win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
No, he can't. You're right, Bennett. But Najee Harris can, and he might.
So far,
because the rookie quarterbacks can go out and stink / not play enough, right? The Justin Fields and Trey Lance, doesn't really matter how good they are if they start in week 11. Trevor Lawrence is on a bad team. He could stink, Zach Wilson is on a bad team. He can stink. Mac Jones could be on a bad team and stink, right? Like those. So that's within their own possibility that they're not good enough to win. And I don't see that happening with Najee Harris. I think he's on a good enough team where he's going to be given the opportunities. He is going to be given all of the opportunities. Mike Tomlin is a guy who doesn't switch out running backs. He wants his guy. He got his guy with the 21st pick or something like that in the draft. They've got a solid offense. Their offensive line is not where they want it to be. They've done a lot of revamping, so we'll see. Offensive lines come and go each year, I think. So maybe they've put it together, but they've got Big Ben, who's an established quarterback, if not aging and almost done. Claypool, Juju, Deontay Johnson. Like that offense is there. It's in place to be a top, half of the league offense, and he's going to get all the carries. So, at some point as a rookie, you don't need to be sexy. You just need to have something to back up your case. And I'll do a little bit more thinking now when you go and see if you have any answers, but he's the pretty obvious one to me.
Well, the truth is, when you're talking awards, there is a certain politics, if you want to call it, that goes into it, that ultimately, if just one of the 5 quarterbacks is like just good to really good, they're going to win the award. Najee Harris can break the single season rushing record, and it'll still probably go to a quarterback. If Zach Wilson, if the Jets are like in the playoffs, or the Jaguars are in the playoffs, Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence are going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Like the last time that someone non-quarterback won the MVP, and I could be reading this wrong, but it was like 2007, Adrian Peterson, or no, 2005, because 2007 Tom Brady won.
No, so I think it was later than that. I think it was Adrian Peterson, but I think it was 2005. I feel like it was more like,
I didn't know if he was in the league in 2005.
But yeah, I don't. But I mean that's not shocking. It's a quarterback-driven league, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I think if one of the quarterbacks do well, it'll be them. I don't personally see Mac Jones putting up like the numbers to warrant an award. I think he's going to be, because one of the things I thought was interesting with Mac Jones, just quickly, is like as people were talking up his preseason, how good he was and whatnot. I know it was just preseason. He also, I think, only in the last game like threw his one and only touchdown of the preseason or whatnot. So I thought that was a little bit. I think that's kind of how it's going to be. Like, I don't think he's going to throw for a lot of touchdowns. I think he'll have good drives and he'll make good throws, but like they're not going to really rely on him to really put the offense on his shoulders. So I don't think he'll necessarily have the stats. I think Najee Harris is an easy one because I just think he's the best running back in the group, and the best running back in the group is going to get the most carries. The interesting one I was going to ask you about is, because there were some offensive skill positions that were drafted very high, and Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase and Waddle and Devontae Smith, and I guess maybe one of those guys, or if you're willing to admit that you were wrong on Jamar Chase yet before the NFL season's even started.
No, I'm not going to admit that. No,
I'm just saying. I mean, he had he basically. If we're going to say you take everything in the preseason with a grain of salt, is true. At the same time, you'd like to see your first round pick, show glimpses and kind of ball out in preseason. And I think it's fair to say that Jamar Chase did not do that.
But guess who else didn't do it? Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell had a bad offseason. Are you going to give up on him?
Okay, so here's what I'll say here's the difference between Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase. Whereas, and I think it's one of the least talked about things in football, is that Penei Sewell essentially, I know he's an offensive lineman, he's a tackle, and people just go, oh, that's the same thing. He's learning a new position. He's never been a right tackle his entire career. And my understanding of hearing offensive linemen talk about it is they always say people think it is way easier than it is. I'm not saying he can't do it, but it's basically learning. It sounds like the same thing if you just showed up to spring training one day and they're like, yeah, you're just a left-handed hitter now. Like, we know you know how to hit.
That
but
can't be the same thing. I don't know. I never played offensive line, but that can't be the same thing.
I'm just saying maybe that's too far. It seems like offensive linemen always point out that it is so much harder than people think it is. You're totally. It's just a mental. You're retraining your brain of how your footwork is. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just saying I think there's a little bit more leeway when you're talking about a guy essentially learning a new position or getting more comfortable in a new position. I'll give him a little bit more leeway. And I think it's just easier, obviously, for an offensive skill position to flash, and you can push things, towards him, and you can try to make him look good or whatnot. That yes, I think it's a bigger deal if you're going to draft a wide receiver, top 5, top 6, wherever he was drafted. That yes, you'd like him to have more than one catch in preseason.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, I would have loved to have Jamar Chase have more than one catch, and I just think he was that good in college, and he took a whole year off, and this isn't like, taking a year off of baseball where like you have 30 at bats and now you're back. Like, football is a really physically demanding sport. Like, you need to be in great shape. You need to be ready to take hits. You need to be ready to go up against the best players every single day. Like, so I think I bring this up a lot, like baseball player talking about a football player, but like I think there's a lot of those things that we don't mentally understand. And I think that's why I'm willing to give him and Penei Sewell, I'm not giving up on anyone, the benefit of the doubt here, because I still think athletically and technically he already showed that he's one of the best in this position at this point in his career. Right? He can't possibly do that anymore. Obviously, he could have had 10 catches in the preseason. Nobody's going to remember this, just like nobody's going to remember the Ravens winning 22 preseason games in a row. It doesn't matter unless you do it or don't do it week 1 through 17. So
obviously.
That's a good soundbite as well.
Obviously. So yeah, it sounds like you're not taking Jamar Chase to win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
But no, I'm not.
But I will say, I have one, just so it doesn't feel like I'm ganging up on you or just trying to gloat if I get a prediction right. I have one that I'm willing, after doing some more studying, some more thinking, to admit I was wrong on. If you'd like me to do that, unless we're out of time, and then I don't.
We got. Listen, I always have time for Bennett Perry to admit he's wrong, because this doesn't happen often.
So I will admit, after thinking about it more, after kind of seeing how some things are going in the preseason, I'll keep saying it doesn't matter what you do in the preseason, but just seeing how some things go and whatnot, I will admit overall, I think my take on saying the Cowboys were losers for going Micah Parsons, I will say I think was wrong, and I do see how a playmaking linebacker, a side to side linebacker, and the way he plays, that not even commenting so much on the player, but just I think I was making a comment of why I thought it was a bad pick on just like, even if he was good.
Position.
Just positionally, where I think I'm a little bit more of how they're going to use him, and watching Hard Knocks a little bit, and just I'm like, okay, I see where this could be, kind of where the Cowboys have been a quote unquote soft defense. We're kind of getting a tone setter, adding a little swag to that position, and if you're going to go defense, best player available, that was your guy. I think, then I can see where they're coming from, and I think I was wrong in saying that just positionally that was the wrong pick there.
I didn't see much / any of the Cowboys in the preseason. I didn't watch Hard Knocks, but I am glad to hear that, and it doesn't totally surprise me. I think we talked about this on the draft podcast back in April, that Micah Parsons was, take away the position as a defender, he was the kind of defender that you I think value in the fact that he makes splash plays, right? He creates chaos. He can rush the passer. He can obviously stop the run. He creates turnovers. Like, I think he was, I don't know what his turnover rate, I'm not going to make up some stat here now, but at Penn State, watching him firsthand, like, that was a guy who he created turnovers for your defense, and that's kind of what you're looking for in the NFL is somebody who can get you make those splash plays. So I'm happy. I'm glad that you are the bigger man here.
I think I'll have to admit that we said it, I think, on the draft podcast, at least for me, when I'm watching guys, I am watching it with the mindset of I'm a 49ers fan and what's good for the 49ers. Now, the 49ers have the best linebacker in football on their team already, so if I'm being honest, I didn't watch a lot of linebacker
why
tape.
would you? You don't need one.
And I saw the highlights, and I think just kind of thinking about just the philosophy behind the pick. I think that's more what I'm commenting on, saying I was wrong on, and saying that the philosophy behind the pick because of the position he played was not the right pick. Where the more I think about it, I do think if you thought that highly of him and you think he's going to be that player, that was a good pick, and I could see how that could be a good tone setter for that Cowboys defense.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm glad you're on board. I'm a big Micah Parsons fan.
Do you have any other hot takes, predictions for the season? You want to give a quick rundown of you want to give your division winners and your Super Bowl prediction, or?
I don't have them, but I will definitely do it. I've got teams that I like and teams that I don't like. I think the Ravens are going to have a really good season. It's a lot harder now with kind of where they've started offensively. Like that's going to be a tough. I think they're going to struggle for the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. The Bateman's hurt. There's another wide receiver that's hurt as well on the team. But the Dobbins going down. Like I think that passing offense was already kind of.
Did you see who they just signed though?
Lev Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's kind of a big deal. I mean,
is it? When was that saying he was good?
No, not for that sense. I'm just saying from the sense of, that's the Ravens and Steelers is a big rivalry, and
yeah. Well, I was kind of, was it Villanueva? Didn't Villanueva go from the Steelers to the literally this offseason, right away?
It's not as much as the name of Le'Veon Bell, who was a big part of that Steelers team, and I don't know. I just was like, that is kind of interesting. It was similar to me when Richard Sherman went to the Niners. I'm just like, it's weird. It's weird, cheering for someone that I don't know. No, I don't think from a production standpoint he'll necessarily help.
That was going to make a difference. But no. Let's talk about some of the teams that I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to watch the Washington football team. Excuse me, please cut that out.
I'm pretty sure you caught yourself at time, but still.
I think the football team's going to be good. I think with another year of Ron Rivera, I think he's a pretty impressive coach. He doesn't do anything flashy like the Andy Reids and the Sean McVays of the world. Love Terry McLaurin. I love Antonio Gibson. I love that offense, and one of the better young defenses in the league. So I think they're going to win the NFC East. I have such a soft spot for the Vikings. I don't know why. Maybe it's the players. I love Kirk Cousins, Bennett, and I think you do too. But I freaking love Kirk Cousins.
I do not love Kirk Cousins. I think I like him more than most people do. I do not love Kirk Cousins.
I think he's going to win a Super Bowl in his career. Maybe that's in Minnesota.
I do not think that's happening.
Maybe it's not in Minnesota, but. The Justin Jefferson, obviously, Adam Thielen, the Dalvin Cook. I think the defense is going to struggle. That's probably why they don't win the division. But I will say the Minnesota Vikings beat out the Packers for the NFC North, which is going to be tough because this is probably their last hurrah, right? Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, they're everything writing on the wall for them to leave. They probably.
I think also I think part of Aaron Rodgers coming back, my understanding is that he reworked his contract. That specifically he would only come back if he was a free agent after this year and could choose where he wanted to go. So. Yeah,
they're gonna his contract next year is so much money. They're gonna have to opt out or whatever. So that's a scary thought, but I'll stick with it. Kirk Cousins MVP.
So right off the bat, Washington football team and Vikings, your two NFC teams you like, maybe sleeper teams. Do you have an AFC sleeper team that you like?
The Titans are not a sleeper. The Browns are certainly not a sleeper. It's hard not to pick the Patriots. It's also hard to call the Patriots a sleeper, but
that's fair.
I think after last year,
they didn't make the playoffs last year. So
how bad it was, and a lot of people are picking the Bills to potentially go to the Super Bowl, right? They were one game away last year. They got a little bit unlucky. They're only going to get older, stronger. little bit more.
But that team that they lost to in that one game is still there as well.
It's they are,
and they reloaded as well.
And they're older, more established.
They've also redone the offensive line. That was a problem for them. And I think a lot of people thought they got better in the offseason. They were already the best team in the AFC. So that'll be interesting. Okay, so you're going football team, Vikings, and Patriots as like your three. So I'll give you. I do think I know you said the Browns aren't a sleeper. I think I've said before. I think they have the best roster in football.
Yeah.
If you take the quarterbacks out of it,
before or after the draft? After the draft, right?
And I also said I liked their draft, so I thought they just added to what I already thought was one of, if not the best rosters in football. I still not the biggest Baker Mayfield guy, so I don't know how much he'll limit them, but I think Stefanski did a great job in year one. So I'm interested to see if they just firmly plant the flag as the new kind of leaders of the AFC North, which is a tough division with the Ravens and Steelers in it. So I'll be interested in seeing that. I mean, I'm not just saying this because I'm a fan. I do think the Niners are going to come back, and they're going to show that last year was a fluke. I do think they're one of the better teams in the NFC. My sleeper that I have in the AFC is the Chargers. I think the Chargers are going to be really good. I already thought Herbert was really good. I thought one of the reasons that they didn't win necessarily a lot last year was I thought they were a little limited in the coaching side of it. They also had some injuries, but I think Brandon Staley is one of the really bright young defensive minds in football. In a day and age where everyone's looking for the young offensive mind, he's kind of the opposite, where you look at that, everyone's talking about the Rams are really good this year and their defense. I mean, with a lot of the same personnel, they've lost guys, but like over the past 4 years, they were good, but by far their best year was the last year, where they're number one defense in the NFL, and that was the only year that Brandon Staley was the defensive coordinator. So I think he's gonna improve the Chargers defense, and I think they already have a good offense. And while I think the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC West, so I'm not picking the Chargers to win the division. I think the Chargers could be a problem for some teams in the AFC. I just think they're really good everywhere, and not a lot of people are talking about them. So they're kind of my main, I guess, sleeper. I'll go with.
I love the Cardinals. I love the Chargers pick. Kind of just looking at the depth chart here, because I'm not super involved with the kind of Chargers on a day-to-day basis. But obviously you've got your Herbert, right? If you think Herbert's your guy, then now you've got your a stud quarterback last year who is only going to get better this year. You're getting you said injuries. Austin Eckler. Is he a true every down back? Like, probably not, but he's a guy that's going to just get you yards. He's the versatile guy that a lot of teams have. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, like that's two really solid receivers. Josh Palmer was a late round pick. That's pretty good. Rashawn Slater, I didn't hear much about him in the preseason. I don't know how he.
That usually means it's a good thing.
Acclimated, right? Especially for an offensive lineman. Yeah,
that's usually the rule of thumb with offensive linemen. If you don't hear about them, that means they're doing their job.
And I think the most exciting part is like they've got two of the best defenders at their spots, right? Joey Bosa,
right,
rushing the ball, and then Derwin James.
I guess my thing with the Chargers is I think that in football, coaching is more important than any sport.
Sure.
And I think, not to slam on Anthony Lynn or the list of Chargers coaches, I think their main problem over the years, while they've had a lot of talent and have always kind of been known as the team with a lot of talent and just never quite got over the hump, is I thought that most of the time they were at a coaching disadvantage when they go up against a team. I mean, they're going up against the Chiefs, coaching disadvantage. They would play the Patriots sometimes in the playoffs, huge coaching disadvantage. Now, Brandon Staley is new to head coaching, and we'll see what happens. But it does kind of feel to me as this might be the first time that I can remember, not a Chargers fan, but living in San Diego. I know they're not in San Diego anymore. But the first time I can remember the Chargers kind of having a guy where it's like, I wouldn't be surprised when either this year or maybe just in the future that they don't necessarily, not only do they not have the coaching disadvantage anymore, maybe they start having a coaching advantage and going against teams. So I think that's why, to me, they're kind of the up-and-coming, exciting team to maybe watch.
That's exciting.
For me.
I'm excited. I'm just excited for football season, man. It's been so long.
I thought you were going to say you're excited because I'm excited.
I get excited. You get people fired up for how excited you get over the Los Angeles Chargers.
I am very excited for football season. So give me a Super Bowl prediction before we end this.
Yeah,
off top of your head.
I will say I'm changing it now. I think a couple weeks ago it would have been different. I'm gonna purposely not go chalk here. I am going to say, maybe it's a little bit chalk, but it's the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
The wild card Green Bay Packers, because remember the Minnesota Vikings are winning that division.
Okay.
Beat. I'll stick to it. I was gonna have the Ravens winning, but the Ravens aren't gonna fucking go to the Super Bowl. The Green Bay Packers beat the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
In a Super Bowl.
Interesting. Game.
No, but it's gonna be high scoring. It's gonna be awesome.
Which means it'll be like a low-scoring game. That's usually how that always goes. Anytime you have like the two top offenses in a championship game, it's always a defensive struggle, and vice versa. All right, so you're big on the Bills. I'm not quite as big on the Bills. I think they're going to be very good. I want to be like, because it's more fun to make a prediction that's kind of out there and like maybe it's right. But I keep coming back to I think the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. So I'm going to keep, I think, picking the Chiefs. I'm not going to pick the Niners in the NFC. One, because I just don't want to do it. And two, I think they're going to be really good this year. Whether that means I'll be surprised if they don't make the playoffs. I think they're a playoff team. I think they could even win the division and beat. I'm not going to pick them to win the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily see them getting over that hump. And trying to look for an NFC team, I don't know. It's kind of tough. There's a lot of teams I could kind of see it happening, but also have some questions with it.
Yeah.
I'll never pick the Seahawks. It just will never happen. I keep coming back to the Rams. I think the Rams are a really interesting team because I think last year they were a playoff team and they won a playoff game and they were the number one defense in the NFL. The offense was good. Goff obviously limited them, but they were a defensive-minded team for the most part. And I think they lost some of that defense, but they gained more on offense. So I'm interested to see kind of how that evens out and how that responds. I could see Stafford on that team with McVay. I could see that being a dangerous team, but I'm also, maybe if they lose a little bit on defense, who knows, maybe they're not as good. So I could see the Rams represent the NFC. I could see the Packers. I do think the Packers are they have some areas that I think one of the way I think Cowherd said it, like Packers are they're just more top heavy than I feel like most of the teams. They're just like one injury to Devontae Adams or one injury to one guy. Now Bakhtiari got hurt. It just feels like they're too dependent, whereas some of the other better teams, like they're a little bit deeper. So even if they lost one guy, they can maybe still piece it together for a few weeks. Like Bakhtiari's out for the first 6 weeks for the Packers. I mean, does that mean they get off to a slow start? They can't uphill climb? So I realize I haven't picked a team from the NFC yet.
Still waiting.
I'm not going to pick the Bucks. You know what? Fuck it, man. I'm going Niners, Chiefs. Niners over the Chiefs. The Niners are Super Bowl champions. Book it. This is going to be Hot Takes Comes True, Part 2 at the end of the season.
I don't think it was the case, but man, would I have loved to have been in your brain for you to 4 minutes ago, before you went on that entire rant of the entire NFC, just be like, I'm picking the Niners. I'm going to pretend I'm not, and then just go over every single team and fucking I'm picking the Niners.
That's not what happened. I honestly was not going to pick the Niners, but I can't. I'm picking the Niners. Niners over Chiefs.
First rookie quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl.
Or maybe it's Jimmy. Maybe it's Jimmy. Just being the quarterback. I'm not saying, maybe similar formula where they run the ball, play good defense, all that stuff. But thanks for listening to the episode. I understand most of it was me just kind of ranting on nonsense and struggling to form opinions, but I appreciate you guys listening. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I always love talking football with Connor. Connor, I hope you appreciate it. You got to start.
Most of the time.
You keep saying in things that like you hope that I have you back on, or you hope that you're able to come back on. You never have to worry about that. All right? I want you to get that out of your mind. Okay, it's not dependent on take to take and making sure you're right. It's just giving your view on what's going on in football and your opinions and having these conversations, and to be honest, entertaining my ridiculousness. Also, you can't find those guys anywhere, so you're always welcome back.
One of my best qualities. I will listen to your BS for 60 minutes.
And that is why you're always invited back, is for that reason right there.
Can't wait to be here.
thanks for listening. Again, remember to follow everywhere, subscribe, do all that stuff. Let us know what you think of the episode. And I think everyone should be happy that football's back. So
football's back.
That's all I got.
Maybe.
You got anything else, Connor?
Bring
you got
it
anything
home.
else to?
Bring
you got
it
anything
home.
to plug?
I don't think. No, I don't have anything to plug. I mean, if I knew that, I would have tried to come up with something. But
Well, you don't have to come up with something. Just if you had something that you wanted to give a shout out to, whatever. If you want people to follow you on platforms or whatnot, or it seems like you don't. So we'll just end it there. And
I don't. They don't want to follow me. There's nothing
Okay.
going on there that's worth a follow.
listen, you follow the Instagram page when I post stuff. I'll tag Connor in it if you
Please
want to tag
me.
if you want to
Please
go to
tag me.
Connor's page and follow Connor along and maybe see his sports takes. Maybe he posts stuff throughout the season. We'll see. But thanks for listening, and that's all I got.
Cheers.